everybody. We're back at the 50 podcast. Today we're here with Lauren Friedman. I'm so excited to get to chat with her. I wore my special pink lip gloss just for her.
I love it.
You'll get to know her today. She's a mental health expert. She's like mind, body, soul, like guru. She'll explain it all to you and we'll get to know her a lot better. And I'm also excited to learn more about you and all that you do. But for our listeners who don't know you yet, do you want to give us a quick bio? And after we will dive deeper on some mental health topics.
Yes, I love that. And thank you so much for having me on today. I love everything that you're doing and all of the good you're bringing to society across the board. I'm really excited to be here today. It's true. I'm really excited to be here today because I haven't always been full of peace and mind-body connection. I actually was full of rage. Rage so much that it was eating me alive, and it caused me to gain over 100 pounds and lose over 100 pounds multiple times since February of 2013. So there's all these disparate somatic responses to trauma that my body has been having since I was under 2 years old. Like, I had disordered eating at under 2 years old, and nobody saw it as such. Both my parents were actually mental health professionals. I spent the last 20 years in advertising and technology, and I've kind of always known since I was a little girl that I was going to do something with my story to help others. And in my professional career, I've been involved in a pediatric cancer foundation for many years, and I've always wanted to help others because my parents were both social workers, and my dad was really unwell, and he actually had multiple suicide attempts over the course of my life. And the first one he had was when I was 5, and I remember it. And that's actually, sadly, at this point, that's like one of the least of my problems. But the really cool thing about all of this, and your mouth will drop more and more and more we chat.
Oh my God.
Crazy shit. Yeah, girl.
This is like the craziest intro I've ever had.
Well, I've been trying to figure out
this though. I mean, I like how open you are.
Thank you. Well, the crazy thing is I always thought that because I was open and sharing my story, I was healing, but I actually wasn't, because I wasn't processing the emotions. And I'd been in therapy since I was 5 years old, and no one ever connected like all the things that were happening to my body. Like, I had bedwetting until I was 11. I broke my arm like 7 times as a kid. And I had all these things, but because I was so high functioning, and as it turned out, I was very articulate at a young age. I was actually I found myself. My mom lost me in a crowd, and not only did I find myself at under 2, but I gave myself my own nickname. And I was like, Mama, Lalu, Mama, and I was there. So I've been surviving my whole life and basically raising my whole family. And eventually my mom also suddenly died in 2019, which the sad thing is both my parents weren't really able to parent me. And I never really considered it to be a bad thing because I've always been really self-sufficient. And not only was I helping raise them, but I also was helping raise my sibling. And the sad part about my mom's loss was that I ended up having to protect myself and take legal action against my siblings. So I don't really have any family left. And the really cool thing, though, about this healing journey is that a few years ago, I didn't know any of this was happening. I thought I kind of got away scot-free in my family. Like, there's all of this genetic predisposition. And I didn't even tell you, but my dad grew up in East New York in the projects. So he actually got into Harvard on a dare. He was as brilliant as he was mentally ill. So both my parents, and so I have the ability to connect with people across all different types of communities, because when you're raised by parents that really don't, my mom was first generation here escaping the Holocaust. So they really never really while we have white privilege and we could blend into society, I'm not like the other girls. And I really have this ability naturally to engage across all different types of communities. And I've always been helping people. And last year, during my 6th layoff of my whole team, since September of 2011, which then added another layer of dysfunction because my in-laws were siphoning money in the family business that my husband works at for the last 18 years. And that had disproportionately impacted me. So all of this, my professional life, my personal life, my family life, all of this actually contributed to what had been going on in my body, but nobody knew it. And because I'd been in survival mode, I only knew how to survive. So I've been helping others, but I wasn't able to help myself. And I ended up becoming an adrenal fatigue. A girl actually at my gym, I ended up scaling from 3 hours a week of just a boot camp to 14 hours a week of intense HIIT and CrossFit. And it was because I had to keep upping the ante. And as it turns out, the whole issue was a hormone issue from unprocessed trauma living in your body and being in survival mode. And doctors thought I had a tumor at one point, and they told me to lose more weight. So a girl that I had become friends with at my gym we really bonded over altruism because ultimately we are of the servant heart. And she asked me to help a local family, and I did. And then like a week later, her father committed suicide. And it was actually the first time I had cried ever. I didn't cry at either of my parents' funerals, and I was so, so heartbroken for her. And I ended up being like in a PTSD episode and adrenal fatigue, but didn't know it. So it really, really upset me. And she was one of 9 children. She's the oldest of 9 children, and her sibling was only 12 at the time, and now he's only 15. So as I've been going through this healing trauma journey while I was still employed, I knew I was going to do something with this. I ended up having to go to get my body to respond. I was wetting the bed and having flashbacks while I was interviewing at Amazon and Google, and my brain wasn't working. And this is like a few summers ago, and I ended up securing a role at a big tech company, which eventually they were going to eliminate the whole. They actually just exited the advertising industry. But basically, she saw this lifelong problem. So when I ended up having to go to trauma therapy in order to get my body to respond, I ended up knowing that I was going to create a complex pediatric trauma foundation. So as I got laid off last year, this kind of all came together because I ended up having somatic responses. Oh, I didn't tell you, I had a 39-year stomach ache and didn't know it.
Oh my God.
I thought pain was hunger up until very recently. And there's all these different ways that now I know
my God. Pain was hunger. This is like when you said, I really resonated with one of the things that you said. You said, that you weren't helping yourself because you were helping everybody else. And I feel like I can relate to that too. Like, I feel like if I sit with myself like too long, I like, who am I? Or what am I doing? Like, I'm helping everybody, but like, is anyone ever asking me if I need help? You know?
And that's actually, and that's actually, it's funny because when I was so excited when I came across your platform and your posts, because to me, I actually identify with a lot of veterans and a lot of first responders. I'm actually working with some first responders because how do you turn it off when you're not at work? How do you turn off the hypervigilance? How do you turn off the things going through your head? Like you saw shit and you've been through things. Your body knows it. So how do you turn it off? And a lot of people, that I've learned through this healing trauma journey, and because I was raised by therapists, like the DSM-4 was like the Bible in my family. So like, my therapist was like, she's like, you should become a therapist, but I want to help people find resources and get different modalities of healing and stay consistent because people like you are so high functioning and so busy that how are you taking care of yourself? Do you have time?
I am.
You're probably not.
I'm probably not.
No, that's the truth.
And I was talking and we're just chatting for a second because now I'm like really into this. So I was talking
to you about this.
I was talking to someone the other day and they were asking me how I dealt with like my really close friend got killed in the line of duty. And I was telling her in the interview that I didn't fully process her death, I don't think until like a year later, because I was doing every fundraiser. I was doing every event for her. I was organizing balloon releases and I was setting up this event and this event or speaking to this people, or I helped make a garden for her. And I was doing so much.
Yeah.
Like, and kind of not being her mouthpiece, but like, like trying to share her story as much as I could, that I was like, have I let myself actually grieve her death for 5 seconds? Like, of course I was sad and crying. Like when the dust settled and everything slowed down, I broke down. I was like, now that I don't have something to go to every single weekend, like now I can actually sit with myself and be like, oh my God, like my friend died. So like, I totally get what you're saying. And it's, I'm so excited to.
I'm excited. So excited in your story because that's real, and like most people don't even like you were able to make that connection quickly, but some people are just in it and they don't see it. And I didn't see it. Right? I thought I always ate right. It never made sense. I always worked out all of these things, and the weight was just like a major like visible thing, but there were so many things happening underneath. Like I still have sensory problems. And a lot of people with complex trauma or who are used to being in a prolonged state of hypervigilance, which ultimately what your profession is, right? Not caused by external factors and things that are interrelated, end up trying to keep themselves busy because you're so used to being busy. And I
literally can't stop. I literally can't stop keeping myself busy. And it's like I'm starting like new businesses and doing things like every 5 seconds. And like the other night I was applying to get I already have a master's degree, but I was trying to like apply to get my PhD. And I'm like, where do I have the time? But my brain is like, oh.
Yeah.
Science, even though I'm not.
No, but you're not alone. So I'm working with some FDNY folks right now.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, right? Like everyone feels like you have to stay busy in order to distract yourself from what's happening. I felt the same way. And then when I actually felt peace, the reason I was able to actually know that I had a 39-year stomach ache was by the absence of one when I went to my trauma retreat. It was only 6 days. I know. And I was walking. It was only 6 days. And I immediately, like, because I had been on this journey for like, at this point, 8 months prior to this, it affected my thyroid, affected all my adrenal stuff. So I'm not on any psychiatric medicine. I've actually never taken a Xanax in my life, but I stopped drinking throughout all of this. And actually the underlying issue is sex and love. And that's been really enlightening to my life.
Yeah.
The lens of trauma, you look at work, you look at all the things you're doing that consume your life and day, and how you speak to yourself and how you think you're doing so much to help others, but are you taking the time to really like heal and process and let it go throughout your body? And for me, I wasn't. I thought that because I was working out and I ate right and I've been involved. If you look at my LinkedIn, it's literally like the perfect like college application. Like when I was in adrenal fatigue, losing my shit, I joined not only a women's leadership thing, but I joined on the committee. I did internal mentorships, external mentorships. I did all the stuff because I heard my mom in my head, like, fitness, do this, have a committee. And that's what I'm used to, right?
Yes.
So you're going to have a master's degree. You don't need a PhD. You need to rest.
I don't know what I would need it for. I really can't.
You just need to know, honestly, that's what I'm doing. I'm helping people find the balance and rest because I had to do that. And it is really, by the way, like it is isolating, but it's also liberating because once you realize that, these things, you could still feel peace while feeling this level of calmness and not overdoing things. Because I had to stop doing things and people really don't like that. And actually, that's why
I'm so scared to slow down. Like,
I know. Can you do yoga? This is one of the questions I ask people. Can you do yoga? Because you obviously can do fitness.
I can do yoga. Yeah.
Because
do I enjoy it? Immediately.
Well, yoga used to make me full of rage. So like the idea of
anxious. I'm like, when is it going to be over? Like, has it been an hour yet? Like, I got stuff to do.
No, I know. I literally, I was full of rage. My doctor, who also she's my partner in workouts at times. And she literally, by the way, she's had 3 kids. She has like 17 abs. She's amazing. You should talk to her one day too. But she's really awesome. But she was like, hey, give me 4 Sundays. And it was in the month of February. It was a short month. And I literally couldn't even get through one. I was so effing full of rage. And then when I felt peace for the first time at my trauma retreat, I was like, oh my gosh, I never want to unfeel this again. So every day I make sure to check in with my body. I practice, my nervous system regulation. It is really isolating at times, but it require your body and your mind require that time in order to process what you've already been through throughout the day. And then be able to come back better so you can give more and help people. Because I did have to stop helping people for a long time. And now then I learned how to kind of regulate my body and really work with myself. Now I could really help the most amount of people. That's why I'm on a How Are You Healing mission.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So we're going to get to our first question. I wanted to touch on this because I feel like this is how we met, social media. And it's like such a huge thing in today's generation. I'm a stepmom to an 8-year-old. I get concerned about him growing up in this generation because I was and still am cyberbullied every single day. And it does affect my mental health. So I wanted to ask you, the influence of social media over mental health, how much influence do you believe that social media has on our day-to-day mental health?
I mean, I think there's so many platforms that comprise social media. So I think it's an overabundance of information. It's an overabundance of stimulation. It's an overabundance of comparison. So there's so many things that can contribute to just the negativity, let alone what's actually happening on there. Yeah. So actually, I'm an OG Facebooker. I joined Facebook in 2004 when they rolled it out at the University of Delaware. I was
Oh, cool.
showing my age. And I ended up like really having a proclivity. That's actually why I went into advertising. I was always good at writing slogans, away messages. I had women that were adults that I worked with in financial aid during my work study, following me, and they're like, "You're so funny." So I'm bringing a levity to all of this, but what I find, during I've always enjoyed it, and like you, I wanted to speak for other people, especially the people that were helping me. So like
Yeah.
I would go out of my way to come up with all of this custom content and promote so many people. And I had a lot of engagement for many years, especially with my weight loss story, especially for all the things that have been going on in my life. I've always been really open about sharing it, but I didn't know that in doing that, I wasn't healing. I just was speaking facts, but it
Yeah.
wasn't process facts. So I've always been open and people have always been engaged in my story. I had my Instagram set to private because I had, when my dad was unwell, he had a crazy person that was trying to steal my identity. Anyway, we could talk about this another time, but I finally got to this point. And basically, I think that I had to take breaks from social media. Like right now, LinkedIn I'm losing my mind over LinkedIn because there's just so much corporate gaslighting about what's going on. I've lost multiple coworkers to suicide, in addition to my father. And part of the reason that I'm on this mission is I am guided by suicide spirits. I really am. I've always been guided by my father, and I know that my father and my doctor's father are behind all of this. And I'm getting chills as I think about it. But I end up meeting people who have lost people to suicide, and I've actually met people even locally in the community. I meet them around the world, and I've had to take breaks from social media because LinkedIn was like literally like giving me the stomachache that I know I can't do things because it literally was triggering. And I hate using that word, but it's a stimuli that caused a response and not a physiological response. So I really think that taking breaks, really monitoring it, like it's a necessary evil right now in terms of like running a business. Like how else would you get publicity? But
Exactly.
it's so unhealthy. So I think taking breaks and also like just like making hours, especially for children, and that's really hard to be a stepmom to begin with, but like also having implement those rules because social media is toxic. Everybody knows that. And I think, but the other part about social media, it's also, it creates a community. And I've been able to like meet people like you and meet people that help me, and people have reached out to me and said, "Hey, like, thank you so much. Like, you're speaking my exact story. Like every single thing you're saying, like resonates with me, or a portion of the story does. And how can I get help?" So I think there's a good and evil. And I think if it's used in moderation, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I went off a little bit of a tangent.
No, I love it. I love it. What's the best? Okay, no, you said the advice. Take breaks. And
and also have fun with your haters. I like to like really, like this guy wrote to me, and I honestly, like, knock wood, I'm waiting for it, but I've always had haters. I see all the people that watch my shit but can't support me at all. Cool.
Right, same. Right.
Like whatever. You know what? We'll get an audience. And we're gonna help people. So like whatever. But that's on them. But the thing is like I had someone that like I posted my weight loss thing, and this guy, the only guy that wrote back whatever, he said something like, "You looked better before, but same what do you say? Same ego." So I let it go for a week, and then I was like, "You're right, same big ego," with like a kiss mark, and he loved it.
Yeah.
You just have fun with it, right?
No, you're right. And for every like bad comment or hater, there's like 100 supporters. It's just the one voice is so much louder and than the nice voices, which is not good. I have to shift my mindset.
I can help you do that. That's like literally, it's like it's like how you think about how you're going to use your energy in a day. Like I did on the negative. Actually, one of the things when I was working out crazy and I had a really toxic work environment, my marriage was blowing up, like all of these terrible things were happening. I ended up really I was already like doing poorly at the gym, and then I would talk shitty to myself and it would make it even worse. And so like think about it like that. It's a negative self-talk. Like don't waste your energy on that. Just let that shit go.
Yeah. Love that. Love this. Okay. So beyond the virtual world, and you've said this already, but like just to reiterate, what are some daily things? And I love that you just said don't talk shitty to yourself. So that could be one of them. But what are some daily things that we can do to improve our mental health in this world where we're on our phones and we're seeing horrible things on the news? We're getting cyber bullying messages. We're going to work and our coworker we have a toxic work environment. We know someone who's committed suicide, or financially, so many of us are struggling. Like, what are some daily things that you would recommend just to do for just us?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many practices that I've had to learn how to implement in my life. And, one of the things I truly believe in is starting just with one thing. And then you could build upon it.
Yes.
Because I'm really like, when I first started my healing journey, I'm an overachiever and there's 1,000 people like me.
It's like, well, I could do 45 things today. That's what I would do.
Yeah, right. And then I
Right.
tried to do that, and then I couldn't do anything. So I really recommend starting with one thing that you can incorporate into your life in an easy way. When I first was doing this, I actually went to a Reiki intuitive healer, which I was totally against. But at my trauma retreat, my our guide, the therapist, was actually specialized in somatic healing, and she was like, "You hold all of your pain in your chest," and she's like, "You should really try Reiki." So I did, and the woman there was like, "You know what? You should, instead of doing something that's not part of your routine, if you're in the shower, try to meditate in the shower, try to these small little things, focus on your breathing and just learning how to meditate alone. Like meditation used to make me full of rage. Everything made me full
I don't even know where it would start.
I could
like you just said, do it in the shower.
Yeah. And
it's like 15 minutes of the day.
Yeah.
That I'm not doing something besides showering. Probably my only free time. So I love that. That's great.
And that's like a good way to start. Like it's your first foray, right? Like you start with this. I could coach you through because I also didn't know how to, people were like, you have to be in your body. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah. I don't know. Be in my body. I'm
like little meditate.
Yeah.
Like I actually used to be afraid. So I paid a lot of people. I had a personal trainer. I had all these different people that were telling me to breathe, but I was literally embarrassed to breathe out loud. And that's also a sign of complex trauma. So the thought of breathing to me was like terrifying. Like up until sometimes even now, I have to remind myself, you're allowed to breathe. Like you're allowed to be here. So
like in yoga, when they did the heart breathing, I was always afraid to do I'm like, I feel weird doing that.
Any breath though. Like when I first went to my trauma retreat, the first day, it was only 6 days, but the first day there was a group session and she was like, put your hand on your heart and your stomach. And I wouldn't do it. I literally couldn't do it. Like I just sat there and I learned my taking actions well. So I was like, and she just looked at me and I was like, I couldn't. And by the end, I was like, okay, I could touch myself. So like there's such a spectrum of how people are trying to heal or don't know how to heal that's what I want to, I'm really trying to be an integrative healing coach and give people the resources, the tools, the support, all the guidance so that you could figure out like something that works for you and you could build on it because you need more than 15 minutes.
Yes. So what's your take on therapy and what would you say to someone who is hesitant about seeking help?
Well, I talk to those people every day. I've been promoting therapy my whole life. There have been friends that have used me as therapist. I've had a friend like literally like fire her therapist. She's like, could you give me better advice? And I was like, I can't be. Like, I just can't because I know this is like I knew how to survive, but I didn't know how to live. Like I'm learning how to live as a human. So I'm really good at helping people do that. And I always recommend therapy first and foremost, and then any other type of secondary help after that. Trauma therapy is truly, truly revolutionary. It's a different type of therapy. I started doing EMDR. But for the people that are nervous, my husband, who we have a very dysfunctional situation, but we're best friends at the end of the day and we're in this together. Like we eventually do have to separate, but like he and I are partners till the day we die. We've been together for like almost 19 years.
Wow.
But all my stories are still crazy in my after dark. So don't worry, stay tuned for that. But it's true. But basically we'd been to couples therapy years ago and we got poor advice. Sometimes the therapist isn't for you. Like I had a major mistrust of the therapy actual like entire industry because, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Shrinking with Jason Segel, but it's about a therapist that's losing his shit and what he tells his family and all his patients and his family. And that's like, I wondered what was happening to my dad. My dad literally, like I saw it happening while I was in high school and like, he'd always been losing, but this was like he never recovered. I never saw him again. So like, it was literally that. So I had a major mistrust, but when I started EMDR and trauma therapy, the right kind of therapy with the right therapist. So I inspired one of my biggest success stories. I've inspired and I've introduced so many people to therapy and at least just the thought of it, like a thought starter. How are you healing? Just starting to think about it changes everything.
Yeah.
And my husband had tried couples therapy a few years ago. It didn't work. He wasn't ready. And this past year, a few things came together in his life. And I was like, I think we should probably go to therapy. And he's like, you know what, Lauren, you've made such great success. He's like, I'm ready. And he has made such a freaking difference in 18 years that we've been together. Like literally, I've never seen the most amount of progress in less than a few months because he was ready, he's been committed, and he finds the support. And he comes back looking so much lighter and happier. And like, I see him doing better things for himself. So just feeling like you're heard and seen in therapy is so important. And people are like, well, why can't I lean on my friends? And I'm like, you can, but people don't have capacity, and people don't know they don't have capacity until it's too late, right? So you're draining your friends, and they don't have the proper things to tell you. They're not trained, but therapists are. And a lot of people are like, I don't have the money. And I also offer concierge services to navigate insurance and things like that, because I see those as barriers to entry. All I'm trying to do is remove all the barriers to entry to healing, because ultimately I want to provide resources for adults as well as children. And I know I have like a major mental health enterprise that I'm building, and I know that
girl.
It's gonna literally change lives. And I know that you and I could do a lot of really cool things together too. I'm excited to meet you.
It's like, it's funny too that you say like you were your friend's therapist, like, and I feel like I play that role in a lot of my friendships too. And I feel like I give pretty good advice because, like you, I feel like I've lived so many lives. And like sometimes when I tell people like, oh, I've done this, they're like, how are you? Like, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I've lived 14 lives. I don't know how I got
alone.
Yeah,
just not me alone, right? Like, I feel like I've lived 75 lives today.
I've lived 75 lives. Like, how am I even here with you like today? Like, I don't even know. But I enjoy giving advice, and I enjoy that. But like you said, some people don't have the capacity, and there are some days where I'm giving all this advice, and you know, and it does, like you said, it can drain me a little bit, you know, and it might not be and also I give real advice, but I would say that probably not every friend is going to give you the best advice because they don't want to hurt your feelings. So going to like a third party, like a therapist, like you're saying, they can give you that real, raw, honest advice, because I will hurt my friends' feelings, no problem, because that's what real friends do. But some friends, you know, won't want to hurt you. So if you're getting all this advice, but it's catered to your, you know, not hurting your feelings, it might not be the actual best advice.
So it's not necessarily, it's just not, it'd be like going to me as a police officer. I don't know what you, like, I'm not a police officer, but like, it's like going to someone that's trained in that specialty to help you navigate that. And, you know, I don't want to, like, I'm not trying to be a therapist, but I want to help people navigate, you know, how they're going to heal from like and things like that. Because, you know, I have been to a lot of therapists. I was raised by therapists. So like a lot of people who, you know, those who can't do teach, and I'm not trying to offend the teaching community. Like, that's what the mental health community really is. It's a lot of people that have been hurt and they've learned how to heal, and
100%
others heal. But like, if you're catering to your point, to your friends, like I'm also a no holds bar kind of person. And like, I'm a polarizing person. I'm going to tell you the truth or not. I'm ready for it too. So I get it. But a lot of people don't have the capacity, and they don't know they don't have like, I didn't know I didn't have the capacity, but there was a time when my life was imploding it was always imploding actually until very recently. I've been able to find peace. And arguably what would have been this is arguably like, you know, the unknown for me right now as I've been building this out, and I've been able to find the most amount of peace. But when I wasn't, and I was just in survival mode, I would snap. I would lose my shit really quickly, and I would be like, I can't help you, and like talk to a therapist, like I would beg people to do it, and they wouldn't listen to me. So they still came to me, and I'm like, you have to pay me, please, because I'm building out this thing, because I can't, like, it would be strangers on the street, like people would look at me like in like let's say a workout class and be like, I need a new job and I need a husband, and I was like, I don't know why you think
I would so relate. Like my mom says, literally my mom says the same thing. Me, my mom, it must be like an energy or something where like even at the grocery store, people will are like shopping, right? How does this look on me? What do you think? And like just random people all the time will come up. And like you said, I'll meet someone and in a day, they're like, I don't know what to do. Like my relationship. And I'm like, whoa, you're like, I just met you, but like I genuinely care. So I'm not like offended, and you know, but I think like maybe we offer like something like where we're so open that people maybe feel comfortable, like
That's
but my mom is the same way. People just
family.
gravitate to her. Like,
That's
just
helped a lot of people too, though. Like
she has, yeah.
It's like things you don't see in yourself. Like I never like saw any. I was like, why do people talk to me? Like I don't know. Do I? Like you're easy to talk to. People find solace in what you're saying, and like
yeah,
and like you're right. Like I had someone recently who was begging for my help, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like I've been finally found a balance with work and my migraines and being able to just find my own balance. And I'm like, I have to just do this for myself, right? So I don't feel like I'm drowning. And she's like, well, I don't know if you realize, but you have this like contagious energy. And I'm like, I'm hearing that more and more. So I want to do it in a way that I can help a lot of people, right?
You definitely have that contagious energy. Like, I do.
I love you.
You really do. Like, and I'm like so excited for people to listen to this.
You. I'm
okay, so you said you're working with some first responders.
I am.
And there's a lot of people in this community, like we said, we put on this tough outer shell and could be totally hurting like on the inside. I think probably most of us are hurting more on the inside than like the average person. What would you say to, I guess it's anyone really, people who are struggling in silence and and it's a little bit different about refusing to get help from therapy, but just like completely closed off, trying to put this facade on, people who are afraid to not be tough. What would you say to help them?
Yeah, this is something that like not just for first responders, but you obviously
right. So many people, right?
But like also for first responders, you are different than the rest of the society. Like that's real. Like people with this type of like, I actually associate more with your lifestyle than I do with the comment with like the general public, just because my body, the way my brain works, the way I operate is more like that. So I come across people of all different healing like places in their healing journey. And I talk to people all the time. I socialize this. Like I've been doing this globally actually for quite some time. So I do a lot of market research, and people all over are terrified. They're like, well, what if I don't have a therapist, or what if this? And for me, the reason I actually was doing something called survival mode is my superpower, or as part of like, I run a tight shipwreck and it's going to eventually be something, but I'm rebranding, which is why I'm getting my website stood up now. So I'll be able to send people places, but it's calling it the Lauren Friedman experience. And I've called myself that. And it's how are you healing? So it takes away, we don't have to talk. I find a lot of people can't talk about what they've been through. They can't even verbalize it. They can't even really even process it themselves, but they know they're in pain and they know that they're suffering and they don't know how to ask for help. They don't even know who to ask for help. And like so many resources, but they don't know how to do it. So
I think like you said, like so many first responders can't even start at where, like, if you're like, what have you been through? Or like, I don't think that we could even say. I truly don't think that we could say.
Well, like how do you start? Because that's what trauma you did. Well, that's what complex trauma is. It's not one event. It's multiple types of events in a relational, normally interpersonal way that impact and causes a physiological response. So most people actually aren't able, they actually forget about this. I found out I have the opposite of everybody, but from amygdala activation, which is related to hypervigilance, I actually have a photographic memory. So not only do I have to remember everything and in detail. So it works both ways. And a lot of people, they don't even know where to start. I didn't know where to start when I started, when telling my story, like, where do I start? And let alone a therapy. So what I want to do is remove that barrier so people don't have to feel compelled to share what's happening in their lives or what has happened. But we talk about first, how are you healing? And my dad's name was Howard, actually. So it's an homage to my dad. Who's been guiding me. And my mom's name is Elaine. So if you take off the D, it's an E. And it actually came to me an intuitive thing and all this stuff. And also through another person who lost suicide, I was helping him get some resources, and it's been beautiful. But it takes away the barrier. It takes away everyone's. So if you just focus on how you're healing, that when you're ready to share and you're ready, to find support, I have resources. I have places that are safe for you. There's a multitude of things that you could do to help yourself heal before you're able to talk about it. Because everybody needs to heal, whether you're a first responder or part of the general public. Just from like watching the TV alone is terrifying. You just have to stop watching TV.
Like the news is horrible. Like you turn on the TV, you see 10 horrible things, and then you got to go about your day.
Yeah. I actually had to stop. I had to stop being so well informed because it was making me ill.
It's just bliss sometimes, it's just like, what are we going to do? Everything is horrible.
I knew just enough. And then when I feel myself getting agitated, I'm like, I'm good. It's time to move forward. Because like honestly, my mom dropped dead. She wasn't sick. She did have an autoimmune disease, but like it actually was in remission, which is weird. But a lot of things that are associated with complex trauma come out in the body in bizarre ways. So that's why they're not normally caught, right? Because they don't look the traditional way that other illnesses do. So she just dropped dead. And I know for a fact a lot of it was due to extreme stress that had been going on. And notwithstanding what was going on, globally too. So a lot of things that contribute to things that people don't realize that are impacting every moment of their day. So when you're a little bit more mindful and intentional and have the opportunity to slow down, you could be in your body enough to understand, hey, like, how is this making me feel? And if it's not making you feel a good way, then you should change your course of action. And sometimes like I can't go back to my career. Like I've even tried to do it. People wanted me to be part of their startups. And my body literally was like, no, you can't do that anymore. Right. So it's scary when your body says no, but you have to listen to it because it's just going to keep going.
It's real weird. Oh, but I was going to tell you, so we were just talking about how your body responds. So recently I had this weird thing going on. And of course I'm an overshare. So I was like sharing with like my followers, and I had like a super itchy scalp, like out of nowhere. And then on top of that, I was getting like weird acne, and I thank God I have good skin. And then I had like this like stuff. I got it cut off. I thought I had skin cancer, which thank God I didn't. It was like 2 weeks of just like crazy. And I was going to the doctor, and I felt crazy. Like I was like, I don't know what's going on with me, but my body's like reacting to something. They thought I had an allergic reaction. I was getting steroids. All this stuff. They gave me a steroid shot.
Did it help?
No.
Right? And stress in your body, 100%.
Because what's funny is that I figured it was stress. And then just recently I've been really stressed out again, and my scalp started itching like crazy again. And I had my mom's a hairdresser. I had my mom like look in my scalp. I'm like, do I have like lice? Like what is going on? Like it's so itchy. And again, they thought it was an allergic reaction. And she's like, your scalp is perfect. She's like, it is so white. There's no flakes. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not burnt. There's nothing. And I think it must be something in my body that's like some sort of trauma response. Or stress. Yeah.
I'm sure so I could actually like probably like, now that I'm so good at figuring out like what's going on in my body, I could like now I like figure it out now through therapy and stuff. And I'm sure if you told me what happened in those up to it, we could be like exactly what happened. Because like honestly, in 2020, I remember I had like these hives all over my body out of nowhere, and it was really hot in November. And I had really started like one day in June of 2020. Just a light went off, and I just remember feeling this darkness come over me. And I've never had mental illness, and it doesn't normally present itself in your late 30s. So I was like, what's going on? And it like just kept getting worse. And then eventually my skin thing was like 8 months later, or like whatever that was. And it ended up being signs. And there's so many different ways that stress manifests in your body. And like, as I was mentioning, like the autoimmune diseases, any type of eczema is an autoimmune disease. So whatever was going on your hand, allergic reactions, yes, there obviously you could have an allergic reaction from something. Right. What's happening to you is like multi-dimensional. Actually, the way they figured out about my original hormone problem was my hair was shedding after I lost over 100 pounds, and my hairdresser, not surprising your mom, everyone loves talking to her. She's a hairdresser.
Yeah. I'm like, what other job would you have done? Like you just chat away all day. You're like me. I could have done that job.
Or a police officer.
Yeah.
There are people who like to help people. But help people feel good. That's a great.
She wants to make people feel beautiful every day. That's
I hear alone. Like they have been so good to me. Like I literally came in crying in their chair, like sobbing. Like at one point.
It's a therapy. It's a therapy session.
Like no, I couldn't speak. This is when I was like really like not doing well, and they were just so nice to me. I'm so grateful for them. But it's real. Like these people are your family. They help you feel good. And so I went to I posted something dumb on Facebook, because back in the day, more than
yeah, we always post dumb. Yeah.
And one of my roommates from college, who also had suggested that I get my thyroid checked out in college before she was a practicing RN, was like, hey, you should get a hormone panel. So I went to my doctor, asked for a hormone panel, and it came back that my testosterone, the precursor to my testosterone, which is DHEAS, was at 800 and it was supposed to be at 200.
Oh,
So
wow.
they immediately diagnosed me with PCOS. And I'm like, hey, I don't have any of those other symptoms. Like, also, by the way, I've never had a cyst there. I have regular periods despite my weight stuff. Also, I wouldn't have been able to lose weight on my own. So like, this doesn't make sense. So they're like, you have to go to an endocrinologist. So I went to an endocrinologist, and that's when he was like, they tested me for a tumor on my adrenal gland. And when it came back negative, he's like, that's a better BMI. Now, at that point, I was doing like 5 to 7 hours a week of berries. I was, taking 60 laxatives a night. I was starving myself. I was like,
Oh my gosh.
I lost my boobs and my butt. Like, I couldn't have done more. And I was like, I don't know what you want me to do. And he was like, just do this. So ultimately, it came down to my hair. And what actually, I take hair vitamins I take all of these supplements now to help my body deal with stress. And I've actually been able to get off of a bunch, and I didn't want to. My doctor's like, no, give your body a break. Like, but it makes me feel so good. And it's all based on blood work. And I'll give you all that information because you should do it. But there's something called Nutrafol that actually addresses, stress at a cellular level, which is the cause of thinning, the cause of all of that. So your scalp, because I also went to I went to a dermatologist that specialized in hair loss, and she's like, no, you're growing new hair. Like, she's like, you probably have been through something really stressful. And I started to cry like first time in her chair. This is 2016. And I was like, yeah, my dad committed suicide a few years ago, and this is what's going on in my family. And then all of this stuff. And she's like, yeah, like your body's responding with stress. But how do you deal? Like, what do you do with that then? So a doctor tells you you're having a stress response. What do you do? Can you take a walk? Like, this is what I want to help people do, is figure out, like, here are the things that are happening, and let's deal with it so that we can stop them from happening. And you don't have to drive yourself crazy, because eventually you're just going to stop going to a doctor if they just don't have answers for you.
It's like I went in and they're like, oh, it's an allergic reaction and get new shampoo. And now that my like scalp is itchy again, I'm like, no, I know, like, your body, like you're saying, your body like shows you when you are stressed out. It's screaming at you. Yeah. And it's telling you to slow down. And it's like, it's crazy, because I basically self-diagnosed myself. But I'm like, I know I'm stressed because my scalp is itching again.
Yeah, but it's 100% true.
Wild.
But you're smart. You understand the mind-body connection. So how are you going to heal? What are we going to do to heal you? You know? Exactly. How are you healing? But that's real though, you know?
Yeah. So I'm going to get to our next question.
I'm excited.
Suicide. This is something that you have dealt with in your family, and obviously me and a lot of my friends have dealt with it. My regular civilians as well deal with losing people to suicide. Is there like ways that we could, if we see someone's like body language change, or we feel like someone is not doing okay, what is like the best way that we could like reach out to them, or maybe like speak to them? Is there like ways that we could connect with people and maybe help them?
Yeah, I mean, one, like, sometimes it's not that noticeable, you know, like, it's not.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of the times I also know, just from my own personal experience and the things around me, is that, yes, sometimes it's very noticeable. And if it is, hopefully that person will be, like at least welcoming or receptive to some type of engagement. But, you're probably, not you as a police officer, but like the general public isn't mostly trained in suicide prevention. So like I've also helping other friends right now with psychiatric issues, and they're just not trained in that. So like they can't help that. Like, so something for them that seems so easy to get over and to move through is really hard if you have a psychiatric issue, and especially if you're suicidal. So I always recommend, like, obviously, like, suicide prevention line, 911 if it's like an emergency. Yeah. Also making sure that person, gets the support they need. Either find a therapist, find resources. There's so many hotlines. Call me. I can help them heal. And I will make sure they get to a therapist. Like, that's like the number one priority, is a therapist. But, if it's not as flagrant in your face, and oftentimes it's not, a lot of people put on the facade. Like, I personally, like, always was happy. I had a smile my whole life. Yeah. My whole life though. So everyone, like, they didn't see me with a smile. Like, they were like, what's wrong with you? I remember being 5, being told, like, hey, don't worry, be happy. Meanwhile, my dad, so like, there's a lot of people that are suffering in silence, to your original point. And just by starting the healing conversation and sharing your story and saying, hey, like, this is how I'm rebounding and trying to heal from this horrific thing. Like, you lost one of your really close friends, and like, you haven't had a chance to process that. Like, that's something that lives in you and it's coming out in your skin and your scalp. And what I've also learned is like when you speak your truth and you heal and all of the releases come out, all of these things disappear. And like the more you could speak for her from a healing spot, is really just what's going to help you solve all of that. So I think it's really just a matter of processing those emotions. And I didn't know how to do any of that. And it's something that now I work on every day because I'm like, I don't want my body to feel this way. I can't live like this. Like I'm not going to live with a stomach ache for the rest of my life. I don't want to be agitated. I don't want to, it makes me fat. It makes me crazy, but I can really help people if I can heal myself. So starting the conversation with how are you healing just helps people think about healing in a different way. And that's like truly like what I'm trying to do is I want everyone to think about healing because it's not a destination, it's a practice. Yeah. And it's like anything else. Like if you're going to be committed to nutrition, you're going to be committed to your physical health. Physical health is mental health. And our country, it's a premium right now to have mental health. But hopefully in the near future, there'll be more of a solution that's comprehensive to really allow for physical health and mental health to be combined because they're not separate. They're 100% related. And the more our society looks at it like that, the better it is for everyone. And, suicide is a very, very, I had originally posted that it was the ultimate, it was the ultimate mind-body connection example because people don't really understand that. And like, you take your life, like you're literally ending your life, like that you're ending your mind-body connection. And people don't do it because they're happy with their lives. They don't do it because they think that they have no hope. They're mentally ill. And there are people like my dad was never going to be at peace unless he committed suicide. Like I knew that my whole life. Like, but there are people that really can find the help and can rebound from it. Like, I've had therapists that have had those issues and they're doing wonderfully now. So if you get the proper resources and you understand how to connect with yourself and others, it makes just everybody's lives easier. But also like mental illness is real and you have to take medicine and making sure you rest and not overextending yourself because if you don't have your mask on, you can't save others,
Right. So there's like a ton of toxic workplace environments, like especially where I work, like, any police department is toxic. It's like high school. I worked at Groupon. I did sales before. I mean, that place was toxic too, like very competitive nature and stuff like that. If you ran a company, like not your, like, like a big company or
I'm going to be running a big company. So,
yes, my bad. If you had like a ton of employees and you noticed there was a toxic workplace environment, what is something that like you would have like supervisors do to ensure like the mental health of their employees? Like what is something like if you came to my police station tomorrow and they were like, we're having a really toxic workplace environment and we need help. We feel like our employees are suffering and they're not liking their job and supervisors are not getting what they want out of their employees and everyone's bummed out. What could like what could a company do to like make their employees feel better?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, right? I think that there's, you have to figure out what that issue is. Is it coming from internally? Is it coming from the top down? Is there something happening amongst, the people that are actually the employees or, the people lower down versus like the higher the leaders? I don't know what I'm so sorry. Like
that's exactly right. Yeah.
But I would do that. But also I would provide like what I'm also offering is like some workshops on how to maintain some nervous system regulation, because once your nervous system is regulated and you really understand like what you're responding to all day isn't other people, it's literally like your own triggers and traumas. Like, and so I would really go in there and really understand. I would make also everyone have like a mandatory at least hour session with a therapist or somebody in there
I totally agree.
And just figure it out. And then there's ways to, to put together programs like in the workplace that actually stimulate like an actual productive environment. But it starts from the top down. And if, and it literally sinks into everything. And like you, like I worked in corporate America and it is all like high school. LinkedIn, one of the reasons on it is like high school, except what's happening now is affecting people's livelihoods. It's affecting their 401ks. Like I've had coworkers commit suicide. I've I've been unemployed for the last year and I've been building this business and it's been so hard.
Yeah.
But every day I know that I'm meant to, do something with my story and my gifts to help others. So I'm recommitted, but it is hard. And if I had a comorbidity, like a mental health condition with what I've been through, it would be almost impossible for me to get out of bed. So I really, really empathize with everybody that is on the front lines, that are helping all these people who really can't help themselves, because your body and your mind are absorbing all of this. And if you don't take the time to even process it, it seeps into everything. And that's one of the first things about trauma, is that complex trauma, especially, it seeps into all parts of your life. And when I started looking at things through the lens of trauma, then I realized, like, I was addicted to my job too. And I'll tell you that for an after dark story, you'll love it. But I when I used to talk about JavaScript tags, like pieces of code, men used to look at me like,
I remember JavaScript. Yeah.
They would look at me like I told them to come on my face. So I'm like, guys, I'm literally just talking about a piece of code. Like, you got to chill out. So there's a lot of layers to what toxic and all of this stuff looks like. But bullying is a big thing. And I think in the workplace, there's a lot of things that happen out of, especially seniority, ranking, especially, responders area, and everyone's trying to be political. And everyone just tried to be better to each other. And it's really hard to do. But if you're committed to being better to each other and thinking about others and not just yourselves, it would be a little bit better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's totally starts from the top, and just be better to each other. Like,
everyone needs trauma therapy.
It's so easy to be kind, and it's so easy to get yourself some help. Like Zoom, we have Zoom now.
I know. No, honestly, like, a lot of the barriers to entry people have, they're like, I can't drive to therapy, I can't do this. But now, after the pandemic, that's one of the best things. Is like, being able to have my therapist on Zoom, and
there's no excuse.
There's really no excuse. And I mean, there's still money, there's still insurance, but there's still ways to get resources. And it's just, trauma therapy is literally for everybody. Like, really.
Yeah. Especially first responder.
But that's my point.
So, you grew up in a household that you said that there was some trauma and you didn't even realize it, but you did when you were like 2, and all this stuff. So what's some advice you can give for parents to ensure that their children have mental resilience, like growing up, or how they could be a better parent to their child and ensure that they have like good mental health standing? Because I feel like at least we talk about mental health now, but I still feel like it's like a taboo subject even for children.
It's a huge
how can parents be better?
Especially, it's always been a taboo subject. It's getting, more widely accepted and spoken about, but still, what does mental health mean? That's a very abstract, topic. So what can you do in like real practicality? So I really recommend working on your own healing, because if you don't heal yourself, you're going to hurt others. There's a mantra that has really helped get me through this, is hurt people, and those who can't show up for themselves can't show up for you. So, when you feel bad about how another person isn't able to show up for you, if you just take a step back and realize they can't show up for themselves in certain ways, or these are their own things, it takes the onus off. It helps reframe things. And I honestly really believe, and I've seen it happen. I never met anybody. I grew up with 2 mental health professionals, and I've been in therapy since I was 5, but I never met anybody that was on a healing journey. And it's not a destination. You can't say you were healed, but you are healing, and you're further along than you ever were, right?
What?
And if I had met someone who had been through, who was like me, number one, who had been through and endured the things that were like me, I would have been like, oh my gosh, what are you doing with your life? And then if I'd met someone who'd actually figured out that you can heal from all of that and find peace, I would be like, sign me up right now. So that's what I'm doing, is bringing communities and stuff, because again, it trickles down, just like in the police force, just like in any other type of environment. If you don't heal yourself, you can't help your children. You have to lead by example. So,
That's
a lot
so
of
true.
And I'm also going to bring, because I have been looking for resources in helping some other families and close friends through their own, children having mental health stuff from school, from home, from family life. And there really wasn't a lot of resources that was out there. And one of the reasons that I was missed totally was that I've had trouble writing since I was 5, because when you learn how to write, you're around 5. And that's when my dad tried to commit suicide. I was in kindergarten. So, but it never affected my schoolwork. So no one ever knew it. And when I went and I was told there was something wrong with me, mostly by my mom, my whole life. And she ended up being very abusive, which I never saw as that, right? Because it was just how I grew up. but my body saw it as that. And like the reason no one knew it was because it's so innate, it's so part of your everyday life. So like the complex trauma that we're talking about for first responders is literally every moment of every day. Like when you get a call, your body's on a heightened alert. So it's how do you get yourself out of that when you're in your home life to really be a better partner to yourself, to your actual partner, to your children, to whomever you're working with in the day. And it's really by doing less, like honestly, and bringing together some groups for children eventually as I get this stood up so that they can have resources and they can have community. And also I want to build a campaign, like, cause I have an advertising background. So I want to build a campaign.
Yes.
And I want to work with actually the NFL. I have an idea to have Eddie Vedder involved. It's going to be called the Why Go Foundation. Maybe someday another child won't feel as alone. And that's truly it. Everyone feels alone and isolated, and let's make all humans feel less alone. So it's a lofty goal, but I'm going to do it. And I think that by parents and leaders in a professional environment, starting with their own healing practices, it all will trickle down to really better engagement and a better quality of life and leading by example to your children. But it's a practice. You have to be committed to it.
I love that. I love that because I think that as long as you are taking care of yourself, like your children will feel better. It's like, think about it like like if you're going through a divorce, it's like people want to stay together so badly for their children. But if you're miserable and you're happier apart, like your kids are going to be happy if you're happy. They're going to be miserable if you're miserable. I grew up, thankfully, I grew up in like picture perfect dream house. Like I am very blessed that my parents were so amazing and so happy together. They're still so in love and so kind to each other. I've never, ever heard my mom or my dad yell at each other.
Really?
Never. Bicker, but never yell.
Wow.
And I bring that a lot to like my current relationship and stuff. And that's just, and I feel like I'm my mother, like copy paste,
I love that though, because that's a healthy example. Like I grew up in an environment that was that was the opposite. My parents were literally screaming at each other. And because I was an adult child of a dysfunctional family, I was the one running downstairs, breaking those fights up. And my mom screamed, "You don't know what he made me do." And he eventually, like, it's a story for another time, but he made her get an abortion. I heard that echoing in my house for years and years and years. And I remember going back upstairs when all this would be going on and thinking, looking out my window and feeling so alone and lonely, even though you would never look at me and think that I'm lonely. You would think I'm full of people and I'm surrounded and all of this. But I felt deeply lonely and saddened by it because you can't talk about this stuff because it's happening at every moment of every day. So in your professional life, while you had this amazing childhood, you're dealing with that and your body's now dealing with that. And it's things that, you have this wonderful example. And it's so great that you could bring that, especially as, a step parent, because that's even arguably a more important job because it's a different type of dynamic.
Yeah.
And I feel like that environment has set you up for so much success because now you could really focus on the one place that you really need to heal. And it's not like, a billion years, And
it takes us to get to this adult age to really like understand. Like I do thank my parents now, the 30-year-old woman, like, thank you so much for the way you've raised me because like now I know I am the way I am because of you guys. And if you're like how you were like in your room, like sad and stuff, like your parents probably didn't even know like some of the words that they said resonated with you so much and like made you feel
forever. Like right. My mom told me one like that I wasn't allowed to have feelings after my dad had a suicide attempt. So when you're told you're not allowed to have feelings, like it just stays in you. And I always knew she was projecting and all this stuff, but like there's a difference between intellectual understanding and like physical. Like
kids don't know, like if you tell them something like you're their number one example, you're their everything. And it's like what you say to them really speaks to them. So I think that that's something like a huge takeaway if any parents listening, So what your greatest strength is the mind-body connection. We talked about it a little bit, but can you describe the mind-body connection to us for like people like me who we don't really get it? How can we connect it together?
Yeah. So number one, I didn't know what it meant either. They were like, be in your body. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're saying to me. Like I'm in my body. I always knew so it's weird. I always knew I had a body, but I knew I was at war with it since I was born. So I never knew what it was to be in my body because my nervous system was dysregulated at under 2 years old, and I actually figured out why. And you could stay tuned for all the stories at a later date, but the universe always does present itself. So in terms of being in your body, the way I learned really how to be in my body, and this is actually going back to another one of your questions, like how can you get someone into therapy? How can you start healing? Like what should you do as like the step for someone who doesn't know what to do? And I meet so many people that are so suffering, and they'll cry in front of me, and then they're like, I don't want to do therapy, but I'm like, will you come with me to a yin yoga class? Yoga used to make me so angry. And I don't know if you're familiar with yin yoga, but yin yoga is actually where you hold poses for 3 to 5 minutes. But you're doing it at 70%. So they call it, there's a rebound and there's the edge, and you're not supposed to push yourself to the edge. And I only know how to push myself to like 200%. I don't know how to push myself to 70, but C is for cookie. That's good enough for me. And I remind myself that now that while I'm just in class, but also I'm out of class, I really take the time now to practice that. And what it means is like, don't go full throttle, be in your body enough, take a body scan. And if you don't know what a body scan is, it's really simply just being still and, listening to your breath and feeling where there's either pulses or sensations or something going on in your body, and then trying to figure out what's happening in that time. And it's about stillness. Like stillness is actually the cure. And it's a cure for our society. It's a cure for stress. It's a cure for obesity. It's a cure for all of this. Because when you have the stillness, you have the opportunity to be in your body enough to understand what's happening. And then you could send love to it, and you could figure out how else you could heal. But now, like in terms of like a practical mind-body connection, like now, whereas I used to never, like I would feel drained, like so drained that I would just like die by Friday. Like I used to be on the road 3 weeks a month, 5 flights a week. Like that's a real story. I could only sleep on planes. I've had a crazy life. I told you.
Yeah.
I used to do crazy shit on the road too with my sex and love addiction. So stay tuned for that. But it's been quite the journey, and I'm grateful I stopped drinking and all of that. I'm calling it the sobriety spectrum because I smoke pot, which has been good for me. I don't take Xanax or anything. But in terms of like just finding something from your mind-body connection, if you're feeling depleted and you're feeling like super run down, you're going from one thing to another. I really like today I have a pretty aggressive day of back-to-back things, but some of the things aren't going to be requiring a lot of my energy. They're more passive. So that's okay. And I get some walks in between. But when I go back to back and I'm always running from something to the next thing, that's when things don't go well. That's when my brain doesn't work well. That's when I get migraines. That's when I run myself down. So I really, really like have to be really careful with how I use my energy. And I think that that's really important for people to think about from the mind-body connection. Like, how are you going to use your energy today? You only have a certain amount of energy a day. Are you going to be able to rest enough? And from a first responder standpoint, the people that I've been working with, I've been trying to help them. I know it's like, with your schedules and just like, people have to sleep at the station sometimes.
Yeah.
And just things like that. How do you get enough? How are you actually nourishing yourself? Are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough fresh air? Are you doing all those things? So that's what I've actually been helping people do too. Cause I had the most amount of problems doing this. Like I never knew how to slow down. My doctor was like, you only know how to kill yourself. And it's literally long to literally like, I really believe that I was given all these gifts in this story and like for this purpose to share it, how all these different things can contribute. And, if you don't address them, they're going to affect you. And I did not understand it until I was forced to understand it. And I just don't want other people to suffer. And there's so many ways that like you could just change, even just like I know that you don't have a lot of control of your schedule, but on the time that you're not at work, what are you doing to make sure that you're actually balancing out all of that expended energy and exhaustion and saving other people? How are you going to save yourself?
Yes. I love that. Like, where are you going to put your energy? Like that is like, I don't ever think about that. So I think that that's like wonderful.
It's something when you start thinking about things like that, that's when it changes,
Yeah. So before we end, I wanted to ask you, I definitely think we need to do this again. And I have like a million more questions for you. And I think we should definitely like do more.
I would like questions from you too.
Yeah. I love like everything that you've talked about. And I think that like you said in the beginning, you connect with so many different people. So I'm so excited for people to listen to this because I feel like anyone, even male, even men, women, anybody, corporate America, a police officer, a child, a parent can connect with you. And I really I love that you are so open with what you've been through, because it's not like we're just looking at this beautiful blonde girl who looks like she's got it all. And you have gone through a ton to get where you are today. And I totally love that you're so open about that. If
trying to like feel.
I just posted this picture of you and said, "Oh, we're talking about mental health with Lauren," they'd be like, "Okay, like just this. What's this cute little blonde girl going to tell me?" You know? And I love that.
Going to see my boobs, and I'm like, guys, I'm doing a mental health brand.
It's like, you know, like you've been through so much, that makes you have so much more than just like obviously what you look like. Is there any final takeaways as far that you want to leave us with the Lauren Friedman experience, and then obviously tell us where our listeners can find you or how they can work with you or have your help?
Thank you so much, by the way. I love your story and your perspective and everything you're doing. And I think there's a lot for us to help a lot of people. And you know, but I think just the final takeaway is, you know, if I could find a way to heal, anybody can. And I just want to make sure that other people can find ways to heal. And even if you don't think you need healing, you probably do. So when you're ready, I'm here, and I have all these resources that I'm building out, and I'm making this global. I have some partnerships, you know, in the UK and around the world that I want to help a lot of people, and especially the first responders, because this has been like notwithstanding the pandemic, but just like every single thing that's been happening in our society, y'all are getting the brunt of it, and no one's had a chance to even have an opportunity to heal. And just by changing just small little changes in the course of the day add up, and they all can really help you feel more at peace in your mind and body and soul. So that's really what I'm trying to share here. But also you could find me at the _LF_experience on Instagram. I just started TikTok a little bit. I'm having trouble with my YouTube channel, but there will be something there soon. And I'm also going to be launching the LFG with LFE one-on-one mentorship. I'm already doing that, but I'm also launching the Connected by LFE, the Lauren Friedman Experience communities. And they're actually working with a lot of men, believe it or not. I thought this was a
totally believe it.
But men
are presented to them straight. They need someone like you to tell them what's up.
Well, and it's also, they're the ones that are coming to me because I've been drawn, and I really think because my spirit guides are men, they're like, you need to help these men. And while I appreciate all your kind compliments, like it took me a long time. Like I've never had trouble getting men, but I never felt good in my body. So I feel like there's a reason that I like look a little bit younger and I could like engage with all different types of people, because I'm supposed to help these people heal. And men are suffering, and we all know that. So if you're a man and you want help, please let me know. I'm the man whisperer, I'm the child whisperer, I'm the dolphin whisperer, and I'm the suicide whisperer. So
I love it.
Please do reach out, because there's resources for you and people here to help. You're not alone.
Yeah. I feel like I learned so much just from this conversation. I'm like, at least if I take one thing from this entire conversation, I'm going to like talk nice to myself and try to like be in my own body in the shower.
I love that.
For a start.
Yes, that's amazing. And then I can give you another step after that. Try that though.
10 minutes I have in my day, at least right now, is when I'm showering. I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to like take my time in the shower, just breathe. And I'm going to talk nice to myself, because sometimes I lean into the negativity and then it consumes me. Yeah. So I definitely need to
not to. Also music. I do a lot of music therapy about nervous system regulation. There's a lot of ways. I'm excited to chat with you about that more.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I can't wait for people to hear this. And I definitely think we need to do a part 2.
Can't wait.
And get into the like deep, dark stuff. And like get really nitty gritty. Like even we can have you ask me questions and like go from there. Well,
yeah. Let's do it.
Maybe I think I have more trauma than I realized. But thank you so much. I loved spending time with you, and I can't wait for everyone to hear it.
Me too. Thank you so much for everything. You're the best. And how are you healing is a way of life. So don't be so hard on yourself. Just give yourself some grace. You've made it through a lot of days, and you'll make it through today, you know?
Yes. Thank you so much.